Sources tell CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett President Trump's legal team is preparing answers to written questions from Robert Mueller. No agreement has been reached between the two sides about a face-to-face meeting. And the president's lawyers have said that questions about the firing of former FBI Director James Comey or the president's tweets are off limits. As the back and forth between Mueller and lawyers for the president continues, Mr. Trump was asked about any action he may take against the special counsel.
Will you pledge that you will not shut down the Mueller investigation?
Well, I don't pledge anything, but I will tell you, I have no intention of doing that. I think it's a very unfair investigation because there was no collusion of any kind.
But you won't
pledge?
There
is no collusion. I don't want to pledge. Why should I pledge to you? If I pledge, I'll pledge. I don't have to pledge to you, but I have no intention of doing that.
All right, joining me now are Keir Dougall and Rebecca Roiphe. Keir is a former assistant U.S. attorney in New York's Eastern District, and Rebecca is a professor of law at New York Law School and a former assistant district attorney in New York City. Great to have you both. Rebecca, let me start with you. We heard from the president there. He has no intention of shutting down the investigation, but also there was no pledge when pushed there by Leslie Stahl that he would not do so. Does any of that kind of rhetoric actually matter to Robert Mueller and his team?
None of it matters. Robert Mueller is doing his job, and it only matters insofar as they have an interest in preserving the reputation of the Department of Justice as a nonpartisan body that investigates facts and applies the law to those facts. So it only matters in terms of the fact that they're continually trying to protect that reputation.
Keir, from a prosecutor's perspective, what are some of the advantages of a face-to-face interview compared to written answers, and vice versa?
Sure. In a face-to-face interview, you can judge somebody's credibility. You can see their reaction. It's a natural thing. We all do it when we talk to other people to get a sense.
Nonverbal communication, right?
Exactly. You lose all of that with written answers. The other thing that you lose is the ability to follow up.
And that is a huge thing if you're an investigator trying to get and uncover things. That ability, I would imagine, to do that is just invaluable.
You could be a prosecutor, Elaine. Absolutely.
I don't know about that. My mother would probably like that better. But anyway, I digress. Rebecca, so the president's legal team, if they're trying to rule out certain areas of questioning, does that then become more of an area of interest for Mueller and his team? And how is it that they might be able to work around any kind of potential restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to figure out what's going on here, in part because the information we're getting is not from Mueller, and it's important to remember that. So we don't really know exactly what's going on here, and it may be that Mueller is planning to litigate the question about obstruction, because that may be the most important thing for him, is to get a face-to-face conversation with Donald Trump about obstruction of justice. So it may be that, and it may be that, for whatever reason, Mueller is not as interested in obstruction of justice, but I kind of doubt that.
I mean, is it looking more like there could be a situation here where Mueller might have to subpoena the president?
Right. I think that that's what it's looking like. I think both sides have some incentive in not letting that happen, and litigation can be long and drawn out, and both sides bear some risk, but definitely Trump's side bears a greater risk. The law is on Mueller's side in terms of the subpoena, so if he has to do it, he'll do it.
Is that your thought, Keir, that it could be going towards a subpoena here?
Yes. I mean, the Mueller team has one tool to force, to have leverage here, and that tool is the subpoena. So that's what's will be behind all of their negotiations.
So, Keir, the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has frequently said that there is a Department of Justice policy prohibiting Mueller from taking certain actions around election time. Evaluate that statement for us. Is there such a prohibition, or is it more that there is an adherence to DOJ customs that Mueller might have been following?
Yeah, he's incorrect when he says that there's a rule. There isn't a rule preventing action. There is a custom, and we've seen that custom in play already. I think the Mueller team has been relatively, I mean, they're always quiet. They don't speak to the press, but they've even been relatively quiet in court, except where the court, for instance, has scheduled a sentencing. We saw one last week. The other circumstance where the Mueller team might have to do something, even though we're close to an election, is if one of their targets was about to flee. They would then have to act and arrest someone. But there isn't a rule other than you can't take action specifically to influence an election It's a custom and a guideline.
So it's interesting, Rebecca. Rudy Giuliani had said that Mueller needed to finish by September, right? Well, here we now are in October. Does the fact that Mueller hasn't actually wrapped up signal anything at all about what his investigation might conclude? Or can we not make any kind of conclusion based on the time frame
I think
here?
the main conclusion you can make is that Giuliani is doing what he's been doing all along, which is trying to discredit the investigation and trying to make it look like it's either wrapping up or should be wrapping up anytime soon, and also kind of acting like he has control over the investigation, which he doesn't. I think it's hard to draw any conclusions about the investigation from Rudy Giuliani's comments or from the fact that Mueller hasn't done anything, particularly recently, and seems to be adhering to that policy.
Okay, nevertheless, we'll continue to try to read whatever tea leaves may or may not actually be available. Keir Dougall and Rebecca Roiphe, thanks to you both.
Thank you.